talking about a foundational aspect of PowerShell, which is Cmdlets. So this is not a typo, this is actually the spelling of the word, even though it's pronounced Cmdlet, it's Cmdlet. So Cmdlets are actions, pieces of code that performs actions in PowerShell. They're usually derived from C# binaries, but not always. We'll probably be writing our own Cmdlets later in this course. So they have a specific structure that PowerShell requires for Cmdlets, and they're usually in the format of verb, even though it's not necessarily a verb, dash noun. So a verb is understood to be an action, and if you look here, I have this documentation here. I also have it up in the course. These are the verbs that are allowed for PowerShell Cmdlets. So you don't have to follow this convention, but all the public Cmdlets, all the native ones, will follow this convention. So each verb is attributed to a very specific action. So, for example, and there are verbs that are very close to each other but mean different things. So, for example, here, invoke and start. So, they explain here that the verb invoke is for synchronous operations. So, a synchronous operation is an operation that you run and you wait for the result, whereas the verb start here is for asynchronous operations, which is something where you would run something and you don't necessarily have to wait for the result in order to continue. So an example of that would be you're doing something and you want to install a program, or you want to have a job run in the background and keep checking something, and when something is done, you want to do something, but you don't want to wait for that check to happen to continue with your code. So you would use start, and invoke is obviously if you want to do something, that's what you would use for. But we'll start with a very good verb to start with is the verb get. So the verb get is a verb that retrieves a resource, and the advantage of get is that it will not modify. In theory, there has been known to be a few exceptions, but in theory the verb get does not modify anything. So if you want to work with anything, the verb get is always a good starting place before you start modifying anything. So I've been using, in the previous videos, I've been using this one, which is get child item. So what this does, it will basically get all the children of an item, and an item in this case is the path, which is, well, let's say C. If you run it in a different context, if you don't specify this, it will, if you don't specify path, it will run in the current folder. So here it's C users Chiari desktop. So we'll get all the items in desktop, but if I do path C, and it will then return everything in the C drive. So, but you also have the option to do recurse, and I'm not going to run it here, but it will then go through each of these folders and return all their children. So that's that. As you can see here, when I type get child item or I hover over it, there are a few options, and I will actually start with the documentation here. We'll Google get child item, and these are called parameters. If you want to learn more about cmdlets and parameters and all that things, you have some documentation here, but you have parameters here, and this group of parameters are called parameter sets. So you can use this group here, or you can use this group here. So they are groups that are mutually exclusive. They are there are parameters that are in certain groups that are not in other groups. And the idea behind this, and I will just make up an example. For example, if you want to test, you can test, let's say there's a cmdlet called test, and you have a parameter group for testing whether a computer is online, testing whether a file exists, for testing whether a register key exists, and each of these parameter set can have their own individual parameters as part of it. So for example, we could envision, and this is not correct, but the parameter set as follows. So if it's a computer, we could envision that it has computer name or IP address or something like that. If it's a file, we can check if it has a path. Oops, that's what I wanted. If it's a registry item, we can do a key. If it's a user, we can do a name, and they all belong under this test cmdlet. So that's what a parameter set is in a cmdlet. So we will see a few cmdlets throughout this course. I'm not going to spend too much more time into explaining cmdlets. I think this is the foundational level. Always use the Microsoft documentation if you have questions about a cmdlet. Now, actually, I will cover one more thing. So you also have get command. Okay, this is a bit too much, but if you ever wonder what commands are available to you, you can use get command. And again, we can go to get command and see all the options here. But if you want to also figure it out, and I will probably make a specific video for this because it's important to know, get help is always useful, and you can just type the command that you want, get command. Oops, if I spell it correctly, it will help. Get help, get command. Okay, this is very annoying that it's overwriting the same line, but that's how it works. Okay, so there you go. You can also have this documentation in straight from the command line, the terminal. It works here. You can also have it here. Get help, get command. Sure. So this is just going and downloading the help from Microsoft, so it has up-to-date documentation. It's actually taking a lot longer than I thought it would. But this is the first time it's running, that's why it's taking a while. It will be much faster in the next times. So there you go. Those are the 3 places. Here, when you hover over, you can also do get child item, and then you start a parameter, and then we'll give you the options. You can do, are you done? Okay, it's not done, but here it's done. Get help, get child item. And if you're wondering how to use it, you can also get help, and there's examples here. Okay, this one is not really the most helpful with examples, but some have nice examples. Alright, well, I'm gonna leave you here for this video, and we'll cover more Cmdlets. Oh, there we go. We'll cover more Cmdlets as they come in throughout our course. Thank you.